I'm Alex, and you're tuned in to Climate Action Figures.
Hello and welcome to the freshest edition of Climate Action Figures, not even close to its best before date, I may say. My name is John Whidden, and this week on the show you get to meet Alex. This week's Quick Fix is brought to you by Sean on Canada's beautiful East Coast, and Sean says, I use True Earth laundry strips instead of regular detergent. He talks a little bit about it. True Earth is not the only brand. They're available in many grocery stores even these days, although at a marked up price. You can get them on their website, he says, for cheaper. This just happens to be something he mentioned. No sponsorship on this show. But there you have it from Sean on the East Coast. And Alex, welcome to the program.
It's lovely to be here.
And what do you think of today's Quick Fix?
Yeah, I've heard of laundry strips, but to be honest, I don't entirely know what they are, though I do really like machines that do things in a more efficient way than we do them by hand, like how dishwashers are actually more water efficient than washing dishes by hand. So if
Right.
there's a way to improve that for my laundry, that'd be lovely to hear about.
I can fill you in a little bit on this because thanks to Sean, our listener from the East Coast, I actually tried these laundry strips now. Actually, I started with True Earth, and now, as we may have talked about last week with Kate, we get our laundry strips from our local refillery. So there's not the packaging and everything else that goes with it. Although True Earth was pretty great with packaging, it was all cardboard based. But what it is, Alex, is these little strips that are about 10 centimeters by 5 centimeters, let's say, and you just tear one off and throw it in instead of using laundry detergent. And the benefit, of course, is liquid laundry detergent is so heavy, it has a huge transportation cost to it. Even powdered detergent weighs a lot more than these things do. They're super thin and light. And in our laundry for a year now, they've worked really well. So that's laundry strips for you.
Sounds convenient too, you just toss it in.
You know what we should do is we should give some away on the show. That's what we should do.
I'd definitely take some, but would that not be getting closer into that sponsorship
I
thing?
guess we'd have to be careful. We'll just give away no-name brand laundry strips.
Yeah,
How about that? And speaking of giving things away, I meant to mention that we have a giveaway this week. And I didn't even warn you about this, so it'll be a surprise to you too. Canadian Parks and Wilderness, who is also not a sponsor of this program, gave me this great medium-sized t-shirt. Describe it to us, Alex.
So it's a lovely t-shirt. What would you say that color is there, John?
Army green. How about that?
Army green, yeah, with an even brighter green logo there, with a bear, and you have some mountains and just a beautiful kind of landscape that we associate with Alberta wilderness there. So
wonderful description. If you would like to win that t-shirt, here's what you have to do, listener or viewer. Write in to climateactionfigures@gmail.com and be the first one to do so, and you win that shirt, and I will mail it to you. How about that?
Even mails it. Get in on that.
Great. Now, Alex, we met this past summer when I stopped in at the visitor center at Police Point Park here in Medicine Hat, and you told me all about snakes. Have you always had an affinity for snakes?
So yeah, that's right. When I was working at Police Point Park, you popped in. That's how we first met. And yeah, at the time we had this big display on all the native snakes in Alberta. When I started working there, I was super excited that that was the first display because you're absolutely right, John. Yeah, I have had a huge obsession with reptiles and snakes, especially when I was a lot younger. It sort of faded over time. Now I'm more into plants and such, but things with scales and forked tongues were, yeah, they were my thing for a long time.
So since you had this love for snakes, do you want to give us some interesting facts that you've learned about snakes over the years?
One I picked up very recently at Police Point Park from all the knowledge that we share there at the Interpretive Center, so much cool stuff, is that bull snakes are our largest by length snake in Alberta, but despite being the largest, they also climb trees. So you should look down, but also up. Although they're not up there to go after you or anything. They're just trying to get off the hot ground sometimes and kind of allow themselves to circulate air around them and regulate their temperature a little bit better. But it's also to avoid predation because, If you're on the ground, that's kind of where
Ah,
a snake is expected to be. But if you're in a tree, the things that are trying to eat you might not be able to get you.
I have met a number of bull snakes on the paths in Medicine Hat, and I also know that they are harmless to us.
They absolutely
But
are.
I want to ask you, because this is such a misunderstood topic, about rattlesnakes,
Mhm.
because rattlesnakes are far less dangerous than most people realize too. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yeah.
Do you want to tell
Um,
us a little about why that is?
the first thing is, personally, I've had probably 20 plus encounters with rattlesnakes. A lot of those are probably with the same snake multiple times. Because back when I worked with SEAWA, a local organization in Medicine Hat, I'm sure we're going to talk about them later. We had a couple sites that had some like nesting locations, and so often we'd pull up and we'd have to check under cars before we got out by like tapping things on the side to make sure there weren't any snakes under there. So I've ran into them a lot, and I've never been bit. So these aren't creatures that are looking to go and get you. It is their absolute last ditch effort. A thing I always like to say about rattlesnakes is that they're the most polite venomous snake in the world because they don't want to bite you at all, and they've even through evolution got this amazing little warning system that lets them go, "Hey, I'm here. Don't step on me." Right?
Right.
So they're super nice, and it became such a regular occurrence for me when I was working at SEAWA that I would sometimes go, "Oh, hey, thank you," and would like actually talk to them like that, like they were giving me a friendly warning. So
Well, if you have a relationship with rattlesnake, far less chance that it'll attack you, right?
exactly, right? Yeah, dude, respect to you.
So the rattle is not, I am attacking you. The rattle is, don't come much closer because I'm not very comfortable. Is that
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, the western prairie or plains rattlesnake, depending on how you say it, they would have evolved alongside with bison and huge herds of bison and buffalo
Mm,
all over the Great Plains. And I think the biggest hazard one of those has to a snake is getting stepped on. So
right.
I've always assumed that the main reason that they ended up evolving a rattle to warn is just so they get stepped on less frequently because that's really dangerous for
Right.
a snake.
Right. And Alex, it seems to me that when we talked about it this summer, you said something about rattlesnakes having very little venom, so they have to use it very judiciously. Is that correct?
It takes a lot of time to produce their venom that's just stored in these little venom glands in the side of the head. It's why they have that kind of like curved out head. That's where that's stored along with their
Oh,
jaw
cool.
muscles, so they get a pretty big bulge there. They don't produce a ton, and that actually leads to a lot of their defensive bites being entirely dry without injecting any venom at all.
Oh,
So they know that I'm probably not going to be able to eat this giant 6 foot tall biped right here. So I might as well just give them a bite that'll hurt, but not waste any of my resources because that's more for
oh,
hunting.
interesting. So
Yeah,
they get to choose whether they
yeah.
inject venom or not. Wow.
Not entirely all of them. There's always been a warning that young venomous snakes are more likely to inject venom because
Oh,
they have less control. I don't know if that's highly researched, but that's always been like a wildlife safety thing. Is just like handling juvenile snakes is sometimes actually more dangerous when it comes to venomous one.
okay. I have to run one more snake thing past you, because when I was
Yeah.
at Dinosaur Provincial Park a couple of summers ago, one of the interpreters there told me that no one in recorded Alberta history has been killed by a rattlesnake. I'm not sure if that's true. That's what they said, anyways.
I think that would be a really safe assumption. That'd be accurate.
Ultimately, we don't need to be so scared of rattlesnakes.
Definitely,
Be
yeah,
aware of them,
definitely
but don't
are.
be scared of them.
Yeah,
Very good.
honestly, as long as you don't step on them, you're probably fine. If you see one, the best thing you can do is just not move and figure out where it is, and then just take a couple calm steps back, and you're golden. You're great.
Well, we're getting off on our favorite topic, apparently. So, since we're not on climate action reptiles, let's move it along.
Absolutely.
But that was very interesting. Thanks for sharing all that with us. You mentioned a wonderful organization called SEAWA, and I
Mhm.
know a couple of people who are involved in that here in Medicine Hat, and it is fantastic what they do. Would you like to
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, SEAWA is the Southeastern Alberta Watershed Alliance, and that was actually my first summer position after my first year at Medicine Hat College in the environmental biology and reclamation technology program, which I since graduated from, and now I'm up here at University of Lethbridge. But yeah, SEAWA is super cool. I when I was there, I was a riparian research assistant. A lot of my work revolved around checking up on our restoration sites. I would do data collection. I did a lot of watering actually to keep up some of those locations. I was also doing things like planting trees and all kinds of vegetative work. It was really amazing experience and such special work. No one else is doing that in southeastern
Oh, that's
Alberta.
great. When you think about SEAWA, what do you think their most important facet is in the way they fit into the environmental puzzle?
Well, SEAWA, of course, is a watershed alliance. So the majority of their discussion is water resources.
And why is that important?
So the reason that's important is because water is our main resource for life. It's every creature's resource for life as well. And the effects of climate change can really deplete water resources. And as we go forward in time here, we're going to have to manage it smarter and smarter. And so, the thing I wanted to touch on was that the Watershed Alliance focuses on the watershed. So, while our main discussion is on water resources, a lot of the work that goes into that is actually entirely unrelated from water. We're always trying to make sure that we have healthy riparian ecosystems. So, a riparian ecosystem is the ecosystem that exists on the side of a channel of water. So, if you had like a creek here, you'd have a riparian ecosystem here and here on the different banks on the side. And these can be like wide open, long, like huge floodplains, or they may be just tiny little rows of like super dense trees and things like that. So we do a lot of work entirely unrelated to water to help our watershed be healthier, more biodiverse, more resilient to climate change, and can even have some positive effects that lead to reduction of CO2. Like there's a lot of carbon sequestering that can happen. The plants just suck it straight out of the air. It's amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, you did mention that you're at the University of Lethbridge now. Tell us
Mhm.
what you're taking these days.
Yeah. So I'm super fortunate to have the opportunity to transfer out of my diploma. So I graduated as Nat College with a 2-year diploma in environmental biology and reclamation technology. But there's a transfer agreement where I just do 2 more years up here at the University of Lethbridge, and I get a full degree in environmental science. So I'm kind of getting this like 2-for-1 4-year degree, and it's awesome. I'm having a really good time up here.
And as you work through this degree and then move on, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh man, that's always such a loaded question, you know? A really intense thing to consider. I want to keep doing what I've started. I've kind of been slowly specializing more and more into work relating to vegetation. I'd love to at some point pick up the professional title of a botanist. That's been my driving goal. I think maybe since I was about 16. So hopefully, going doing that. I know there's a lot of work in this province doing things like rare plant surveys, which is something I'd love to do. But where we met at Police Point Park, I got to work with a lot of young people and community groups, and I did a lot of interpreting, which is kind of like teaching. And I discovered it's something I really like. I always had a hunch that I'd enjoy teaching. So if at one point I can end up being an educator in any aspect, whether that's like a big university professor who spent 30 years in a PhD, or if it's just, uh, community workshops and things like that. I want to keep that in my life. I really like working with people in that way.
Alex, we've talked with a number of guests even this season who are actually studying at university some sort of environmental program. And one question that I have not asked anybody that I'll ask you now is, at the end of some sort of environmental degree, are there a lot of jobs out there?
I remember starting at Medicine at college. That was the biggest thing that they're always talking about when it comes to recruitment. But it is actually true. This isn't a lie. It is one of the fastest growing sectors in the world, and in Canada in particular, because we have a lot of land. As the arrogant worms once said, Canada is really big. Yeah, we have a lot of land to manage. So, getting into the sciences that work with all that land is a really great opportunity in this day and age.
Now, Alex, I'm going to put you on the spot with an audience member question. I just got it today and I love the question. So I'm going to throw it your way.
You got it.
Twyla says, I would love to hear from one of your guests if they ever feel particularly anxious about climate change, and if they do, what their favorite coping strategies are. So, is that a fair question to throw at you?
I just want to say, Twyla, that's an amazing question. I think everyone, if you run into any kind of environmental professional, ask them that.
Hmm.
That is the thing, because we'll all kind of have like a different take on it, but we all kind of fit in a similar space. In my studies, I'm always inundated with all kinds of warnings, predictions, scientific understandings, and they're always delivered very casually, and so it can kind of it's a mix of you feel desensitized a little bit, but also very hyper aware. We're always talking about it. A lot of the conversations I have with my friends that I went to college with and work in this field, that we're always considering it. We're always seeing it. And my biggest coping mechanism is kind of using it as energy in a way, because I'm already here in surrounded by this stuff. I'm also learning solutions, and so I kind of use it as a inspiration in a way. It's like, okay, we know the full extent of this, and we learn more and more every day about the full extent of this issue, and so I kind of channel that and put it into everything I do. Obviously, that doesn't quell anxiety all the time. So I also really lean on people around me. I think the worst thing you can do with your anxiety about climate change is isolating yourself. Find the people who care. Find the people you can talk to, and just discuss it all the time. Discuss all the little things. And if you're both anxious, like, oh man, this sucks. What do we do? Uh, I found researching solutions together is actually really nice. I remember my current partner came to me one day and was like, "I'm just super anxious about this," and I was like, "Well, let's get on the internet and let's dig up some stuff." And it made her feel a lot better. So I think doing that with loved ones, friends, anything is a great way to tackle it.
Wonderful advice. I'm reminded of a guest we had last season. I think it was episode 19. Jacob came on, and
Mm.
he's this social media star now in the States and Canada, all around the world. I think
Oh,
he's got
wow.
a huge number of followers. I don't want to say how many because it changes regularly. He's in New York, and he goes around with his phone and he shares positive environmental stories every day. That's all he does.
Oh,
One
is
minute,
I
and
might have actually
it's
seen
great.
some of those. Yeah,
There you go. So
yeah,
there's another idea for anxiety that's sort of
yeah.
along the same lines of what
And
you're
yeah,
saying.
and so
It's
yeah, that stuff that Jacob would be sharing is exactly the kind of things you want to try and find and focus on. Because if you go like, okay, we know so much about the problem, let's also focus on the solutions. Because there's, I'd say, more research into that happening now, and more people working super hard towards it.
well, we are running low on time. So,
Oh,
Alex,
yeah.
we should make sure we ask what your climate action is. Have you got something chosen for us?
I've already touched on a little bit, but I would say try and immerse yourself in it as much as you can. So that means embracing the problem and embracing the solutions and trying to find ways in your life, and in particular in your career. I'm only 20, but I've modeled my entire career around climate change and climate change solutions and all this stuff associated with it. It's really amazing because you can get paid to do many different things that help towards making a healthier environment for the future, just making the planet a better and slightly cooler place,
That's a great tagline, making
right?
the
Yeah.
planet a better and slightly cooler place.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, you can get paid to do that. But even, if you're not like me and you're not straight into this, or if you're already in your career, there are ways to get into it. I actually remember a conversation I had with my dad very early on when I was figuring out what I wanted to do. He's a software developer. And I was like, yeah, but, there's not really anything associated with climate change in that. And he was like, oh, no, 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 no. Who do you think makes the websites about climate change solutions? That blew my mind. And now I think
Right.
about that all the time. It affects all of us. This is a whole world thing, but that means we are all involved. We all have a part we can play. So no matter what you're doing, if you're a business student, if you're economics, if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, if you're a firefighter, if you're a policeman, no matter what you're doing, there's something you can work into it. And if you want to, that is available for you. And you can get paid to do it That's the biggest thing. It doesn't all have to be volunteer.
Very interesting thought. Thanks for sharing that. And one more question that we've sort of touched on already, I think, but what gives you hope these days?
The biggest thing that gives me hope is how many people care so much, and especially how many professionals there are out there that have been, focusing on this stuff and continue to every single day, and sometimes in the face of some really serious adversity. And it fills my whole soul to think about all the people around the world that are pouring so much care, so much thought, and so much love into making this work out. All the people give me hope.
That reminds me, a few weeks back, with the hurricane that battered the coast of Florida and Yucatan and other areas as well. There was a big social media sensation that was a weatherman who was talking about the hurricane, and he became very emotional.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of it, right? Is that part of what you're talking about?
I am very familiar with the clip you're talking about. I saw it myself. In that moment watching it, I felt very connected to that person. There's all these professionals out there working towards this, and we really, really care. Watching that, I was filled with hope. It was frightening, by all means. It's a really serious hurricane, and the impacts of it were massive, and that shouldn't be glossed over. But at the same time, I saw how much he cared, and that just, there are so many people out there that care. So if you feel alone on this issue, if you feel like these worries are all your own, just remember that there's so many people out there that care so much.
And you're telling us the truth about only being 20 years old, because there's a lot of wisdom in your words, Alex.
Thank you. I've always been told I'm a very old soul.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on Climate Action Figures today.
It's my absolute pleasure, John. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us, dear listener. If you like what you've heard and you want to share some of that wisdom, please do share the podcast with a family member or maybe a friend. Heck, why not a complete stranger?
Yeah.
Tune in again next Tuesday to hear from another Climate Action Figure. And until then...
go figures. Only remembered because I wrote it down.
This has been Climate Action Figures. Our show is produced and hosted by John Whidden. Our creative consultant is Kayla McIntosh. Our theme song is Hawaii Vacation by Tavari. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Climate Action Figures. That's all one word. And if you have any other questions or comments that arose from this or any episode, feel free to reach out to us at climateactionfigures@gmail.com. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another Climate Action Figure.